Oh my God. The discussion continues with the conscious cougar. You know, I wondered what this next podcast was going to be like and what it was going to be about and what was going to happen and how could I possibly meet or even come close to matching the intensity of the last one, which was about bipartisan, I was going to say biracial, that's not it, it's bigger than that, bipartisan romance. That's where we were last week, and now we're going to be talking about what comes after that, because what happened in that podcast was the realization that even though we were keeping the topic about can we be blissful in a bipartisan romance, despite it all, what's going on right now, in spite of the 2024 election, can we be blissful if both people in that relationship are on far opposite ends of the political spectrum and, in opinion, completely different? Is it possible? My thing is, let's make purple babies, yo. I'm just about bringing the red and the blue together, merging harmoniously. And it is my contention that that is what we need to do anyway. And so what happened was we did this great big show last week. If you haven't heard it, find it. Check it out. It's pretty entertaining. But it evolves. It bleeds over out from these romances that we're talking about into the real world, out into, can you still love thy neighbor even though they voted for the wrong person? Can you? And actually, we have to. We have to find a way to make that happen as part of healing this country. Is that possible? And that is where we are today. There was a person who was part of that podcast last week. His name is Rich. You might remember him. I had found him on Facebook, and he is Republican, and he is a just steadfast Trump supporter. In the podcast last week on bipartisan romance, his response was one of the last ones. I think it was the last one that I shared with you. And he's the one where I braced everybody. I said, brace yourself. Okay. And then I read his thing. And in part of that, he went off on Barack Obama. He's like, if you were going to elect a black president, it should have been a Christian. It should have been someone with some character. Should have been someone who cares about this country. And at the end of Rich's thing, I was all like, is everybody okay? Everybody take a deep breath. Okay. Woosah. Yeah. Because, that was a tough one. It was intense, but it was good to hear what some folks actually think that is so far different from what you might think. Ultimately, he was like, no, me and my partner need to basically believe the same thing politically, be on the same side, or we're just going to cancel each other out. Well, I want you to know that after that podcast, Rich and I had words. Yeah, it has not stopped. He started it. I finished it. Actually, it's only finished until he responds. And I want to say that it was a whopper back and forth that I want to share with you today, because we're now getting into this thing that is more pertinent. I mean, romance is always pertinent. Abso-frickin-lutely. But this is bigger than that. This is everybody and how we can make a miracle to merge and blend and be in harmony and peace and unity in this country, no matter what. I'm Gillian Harris. This is The Conscious Cougar, where it's always about wisdom, health, and beauty by any means necessary. And this time we are going with the wisdom route again, which of course is healthy, and ultimately that would be beautiful. And we need to handle it in this country right now by any means necessary, by any peaceful means necessary. And I want to let you know that, again, I am so blessed. We have sponsors today. Girlmojis.com. That's girl, M as in Mary, O-J-I-S as in Sam. Do not forget the S.com. Super cool art on super cool stuff, with proceeds going to the Ukraine. That's girlmojis.com. Also brought to you this time by Stargate Adventure, a metaphysical learning academy. The place to go to sharpen your skills in intuition, mediumship, and other metaphysical gifts. StargateAdventure.com. So I really wanted to share this with you today because what I got out of the exchange that most recently happened between Rich and I is some more of the differences. You know, I maybe like you and like a lot of folks on the red side and a lot of other folks on the blue side, and maybe some folks on the independent side are looking at these extreme sides and going, wow, how does that side get that? Where did they get that information? Why do they believe that? Why do they think like that? And how is it? Some don't even know. How is it that they think? How is it that they, believe? How are they participating politically? What is it about the information that they got that makes them lean the way they are leaning in this political race? Which makes them happy or not happy about the outcome of the 2024 election. Yeah. How is that? So, religion got into this. And I want to say that religion was a little bit, not religion so much, but spirituality for me, because I'm not religious, but I am incredibly spiritual. And that may have come up a bit in the last one, or maybe Rich just learned through my profile or something that I am ordained. Oh, I mentioned being ordained, but anyway, let me just tell you, I am ordained by the International Assembly of Spiritual Healers and Earth Stewards Congregations, which is an ordination that is recognized in more than 20 states in America, including California. So that worked for me, and I've been able to marry people and do all kinds of ceremonies here in this state. Got that ordination back in 2012. I call myself a New Thought minister. New Thought. If there is a religion that I need to label myself by, New Thought would be what it is. And I recommend looking that up. It's super, oh my gosh, I want to say, like on the political realm, it's way left. It's way liberal. But it is ultimately that we are each unique expressions of the Creator of all things. And it speaks of us as spirit beings, eternal spirit beings having a temporary human experience. And goes deeper to that. And I don't want to go into that right now. I just want to say that I am trans-denominational. And I think to put trans on top of anything right now, or in front of anything right now, is a little bit controversial, especially if you're talking to some conservative folks on the red side. Anything trans may not be good to them. But I am trans-denominational. And what that means is, it means a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I said that last time too. My core foundation spiritually is Christianity. I was raised Episcopalian, started Catholic, but now I have evolved, to where I am now, and this is going to play into this conversation. That's the only friggin' reason I'm bringing it up right now. I just gotta share with you what transpired between Rich and I most recently, and why I'm sharing it with you now. One of the things that excites me about this is that I really am trying to make it so that it's good for everybody, the left and the right, this particular podcast. If you have any curiosity about why the left feels as it does, and where's the logic, well, I'm going to explain that today. And if you're wondering, we're going to need to get answers from Rich, but with what he says, you do get to hear a little bit of his psychology on this election and what should and should not be happening in America. So also, I want to say that I do this in a way where I'm not just making statements and expecting you to believe me. No, I am making a statement and then showing you where I got it from. And if I say somebody said something, I'm going to show you a video clip of that person saying the thing I said they said. And for you listeners, when I do that, know that down in the information box, the box where you get the information on this particular podcast, there's going to be a list of those links so that you can go see them as well. Okay, let's go. I want to start by saying that there are some characteristics of folks I've talked to on the red statistically that it's a little frustrating when you ask a particular question and they do not answer that. Instead, they'll answer something else because they'd rather not answer that. So that's frustrating. I'd like, I ask a direct question, answer that question. You ask me a direct question, I will answer that question. So I had written Rich and I said, there is a Christ consciousness that I see in Kamala that I don't see in Mr. Trump. I watched him say the words, "I'm not a Christian." He found God for a minute after his ear was shot at. Where are the qualities that Jesus taught? His verbiage is progressively dark, violent, angry. Where is the love and compassion? Why only for white people? And the browner you are, the less likely to hear him speak respectfully. You definitely are not seeing what I'm seeing, and that is kind of scary. End quote. That's my note to Rich. And he responded to this, but not completely. And that was frustrating. Like, I specifically was asking questions. I'm asking, I've heard him say these things. And so what I did in this next part, as I'm writing him this stuff, I'm like, okay, I heard Mr. Trump say I'm not Christian. I'm going to give him the video clip of Trump saying that. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. But anyway, here's what happened. He wrote back and he said, I used to wonder when I would read in scripture about how the people were so easily deceived. Jesus said that sons would turn against their fathers and daughters against their mothers, and I found this so hard to believe until I hear your words. Donald Trump saw God and talked with various godly men for years before beginning to run for office. This is something that has been eating at him for a long time. God would not let him alone about it. And yet, there are people like you who are not saved, who see him in an entirely different light, or so drawn to the evil that is in opposition to him. It blows my mind to see this happening before my very eyes. I pray for you, Gillian, that God will open your eyes and let you see the truth. Then, end quote. And then he gives me, I thought this was a typo. He gave me a link to x.com. I won't be going to xfrickin.com. That's not going to happen. But I'm like, is that a typo? What is that? X what? What? And then another link to a female minister, who was doing some, channeling of spirit. But what I have to say about that, I've been channeling for a long, long time. And one of the things that I learned early is that if it's God, if it's spirit, if it's an archangel, if it's, an entity of that kind of vibration coming through you, it's gonna be positive. It's going to be light. It is not going to be dark and a put down. It isn't. That's just not what God is. God knows how to function and operate and verbalize in positivity. And that's just that. So there was so much darkness coming from her in her channeling moment that I realized it was most likely her own ego bleeding through and expressing. So unfortunately, there's that. So this message and these things that he sent me, that Rich sent me today, were on Facebook Messenger. And I wrote him back, but it was going to be such a big whopper that I said, I haven't done my MAGA communication today. Let me make this it. I'll start here. Let me make it a real email. Like, I went to a Word document. I'm like, I need a big blank sheet. Let's go. So here's what happened. I also want to say that I'm not going to read the whole thing because it was just too much. And when I did that a minute ago, like this is the second time I'm recording, it took a whole hour, and I'm trying to actually make this be a shorter podcast. Going back to what he wrote me on Facebook, remember it ended, he had a little prayer for me that he would hope that God would open my eyes so that I could see the so-called truth. And I wrote him back and said, I am going to go prepare a loving response to you. And so my response starts with loving, because I believe you genuinely care. Thank you. And if you're really praying for me, thank you. I pray for you and yours too. True story. And I tell him, I'm purple. And I start changing my text to the color purple in between his black text. So the first thing that I respond to is where he says, I used to wonder when I would read in scripture about how people were so easily deceived. And then I said, I wonder the same. It's fully mind-boggling. What part of the current psychological operation, or PSYOP, got you to believe that nothing you see on the media is true? Like, where'd they get that from? I said, Don is very proud of his friendship with Putin. Putin has acknowledged his alliance with Trump and the efforts of his country to do what it can to play into our election results. And I asked Rich, I said, is what I just said true? And if it's true, are you okay with this? I went forward. Donald, in his alliance with Putin, is on Russia's side, which would be against the Ukraine. He says Putin can do whatever the hell he wants with the Ukraine. And those were pretty much his words. Do you believe this? Or was that AI speaking for Don? And if it was actually Donald speaking his mind, are you okay with that opinion? That Putin can have his way with the Ukraine, and for that matter, with every other country over in those parts? Is that okay with you? And then I said, the situation with abortion in this country, it seems the right is only about judging what it considers promiscuity. There also seems to be no value for medical procedures needed to end pregnancies that are endangering or killing the mothers. Now tell me, is what I just wrote here true? And if so, are you okay with this? If it isn't true, what is the truth about abortion? Then I said, there was a great bill that was created bipartisanly to seriously work on the problem at the border, which really is absolutely a problem. But so that he could enjoy using that problem to run his campaign, Donald lobbied politicians, not Republicans in particular, not to pass the bill. And so they didn't. And so it didn't pass. This actually happened. But I know there is resistance in believing news accounts. Tell me, Rich, did you know about this bill? Did you know why it didn't pass? Did it not pass because they didn't want to help the Ukraine, because helping the Ukraine would have hampered Putin, and Putin is a friend to Donald Trump? And I got to tell you, going forward, it's going to be difficult to do this list if you simply don't believe any mainstream media, which is the best way to stay current and accurate. Then I'm like, Donald talks about America so bad, like we're a third world country. I should be terrified to go outside and water my lawn. And he says that if the Democrats win this election, the entire country will be like crime-ridden and will turn into what he perceives as the condition of Detroit. I need to ask you, Rich, was that a racist statement? Since we're there on the R word, I said, the Central Park Five, he bought a full-page ad in the New York Times to push for the death sentence of these 5 guys for a crime they had nothing to do with. These guys did time in jail, lost time from their lives in jail, a lot of years. And then finally, some situations went down and they figured out, law enforcement figured out who really did the crime. So now these guys are out. Thank God. Do you think Donald could find it within himself to apologize? No. Is that okay with you? Okay, now as I go forward, I'm saying some stuff and then I'm like, and here's a link, click. And every time I do that, the link that I shared with him in this email is going to be in the box below of this podcast, whether it's on a podcast page or if it's on YouTube, because I'm going to share it there too on the Conscious Cougar page. But so, I'm like the woman in Springfield who originally couldn't find her dog, later found her dog in the basement. But the lies about Haitians eating dogs and cats took off by way of J.D. Vance. and Donald as part of their attack on immigration and the number of black immigrants in Springfield. The woman with the original missing dog story has gone to the media and explained, even apologized for how the whole thing unfolded into this dangerous, dangerous circus. I'm in a rush right now, but this piece here is great as it contains explanation of the situation when a black woman was found eating a cat. That did happen. Thing is, it did not happen in Springfield. She was an American, born and raised. Yes, we have some crazy people in America. Yes. And I got a link for you down in the box below. Now, Donald says that he's going to revoke the legally obtained documents allowing Haitians to be here and have them all deported as a result of the dog, cat, geese eating thing in Springfield allegedly happening. I got a link to that down below. And these links, by the way, Donald, the words are coming out of his mouth. Okay, this is not AI. This is real. This is not somebody saying he said it. This is him saying it himself. I love those. That's the kind of fact-checking I like to do. And if you watched or you listened to the podcast last week, I want you to know the handyman with the six-pack, he taught me that. He taught me to fact-check. And I definitely am so grateful for that. It's a great thing, so I know for sure when I'm making an allegation whether it's real or not. So, back to the Haitians. If they are in this country legally, why wouldn't he, Donald, just turn his newly elected attention to the border and work on stopping illegals rather than harassing the legals? Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he just do that instead of harassing the legals? Are they too dark? Is that what's up? I'm sorry. That's what it feels like. Now, before I go on, Rich, you're a Christian man. So asking, do you truly understand the situation in Haiti right now? Do you understand the conditions that are happening in Haiti right now? And if so, do you have any understanding or compassion for why these perfectly law-abiding people would want to escape to a safer place and would go about the process legally? Should they be deported back to Haiti? I'd like your answer, Rich. And then, Rich, I want to say this to you. Donald tells untruths on a regular basis. Regular. Do you believe everything he says? It's my question. And if you don't believe everything he says, why is it okay with you to vote for someone who lies? As you may or may not know, J.D. Vance has acknowledged on national television that he and Mr. Trump make stuff up in order to get the issue in front of Americans. And he said, if that's what he's got to do, make it up, that's what he's going to do. And that is how the Haitians eating dogs, cats, and whatever came up. How do you feel about that, Rich? I've got the link for you of J.D. Vance saying that below. So Dawn is also showing incredible signs of mental decline. Rich, do you see that? Or was Biden the only one for whom aging is doing a number on mental agility? Just as Putin does to people in Russia, Dawn says that he wants to jail his opponents if he wins. This would be jailing people opposed to his opinions, who have spoken out against him, and includes reporters, probably podcasters, especially the truly popular ones. I got a link to that below. And Rich, are you okay with that? If somebody's not big enough to just handle the fact that somebody doesn't agree with them, if he wins, then that's the issue. You won. Why don't you now just do your work? Why are you spending time that's valuable as president to do retribution. Rich, are you okay with this? Please answer. You know, I always say your experts should be allowed to do their expertise, especially without the input of the non-expert. You know, I mean, you hired the expert, so let the expert do the expert thing. Have you seen all the medals on former Chief of Staff Milley's uniform? Have you seen all of that? His opinion did not jive with Donald's. And so he's meeting Trump's wrath and actually fears now that if Trump is elected, he'll be court-martialed or some other madness for doing his job, basically. And by the way, that would be oh so very, very Putin-esque. Rich, are you really okay with that? Project 2025, have you looked into that, Rich? Yes or no? I'd love you to answer. If you haven't looked into it, why haven't you looked into it? It's a big deal. Or would it just not affect you as much as it would minorities and women and stuff like that? Yes, I'm asking you this question and I would love your response. Do you believe him when he says he knows nothing about Project 2025? And so then I'm thinking, Rich, from what I'm getting from you, E. Jean Carroll was lying? Yeah, that's a question I'm delivering to you with an assumption attached to it, but I do want your answer to that question. The Don had sex with a prostitute. Do you have any judgment on that? Just wondering. And knowing that there'd be judgment against him by voters, he paid that prostitute not to tell anyone. So let me guess. Rich, you think that's not true? Was that like made up by the Bidens or something? Sorry, I'm being a little facetious right now. I don't want to do that. I take that back. I'm sorry. Okay, I take that one back. Oh, man, it's exhausting though. You know what I mean? There have been a multitude of claims and charges against Donald for following his stated and recorded opinion about grabbing women in the yaya, and that they'd just let him because he's a celebrity. So, do you believe that all of those claims by women who were victimized or say that they were victimized by him, do you believe that they are all lies? If any of them were true, do you have a judgment about that? Are you okay with a man who says that, being the one who runs this country? A bunch of people, when they heard that come out and heard his voice on the recording saying that, are stunned that that didn't wrap this up then. Absolutely stunned. Okay, we're going to pull into the home run slide now. Donald told a group of Christians that he's not Christian. I have the clip on that. He also told them to vote for him just one more time and they'd never have to vote again. Quote, I love you, Christians. I'm not Christian. You got to get out and vote. End quote. Look for that. It happens at around 37 seconds of this clip that I'm putting down below. And I'm guessing that what he meant by that is that, you know, to say it like, I'm not Christian, but I still love you. Now, vote just this one last time, okay? And we're going to fix it. It's going to be handled. You won't have to do that again. And about that, what do you think he means? They'd never have to vote again. What does it mean? It'll be, quote, fixed. And why, Rich, does that not concern you? He is doing a thing to ready his forces to pretty much do what happened on January 6th, but I feel everywhere if he does not win. Who knows what kind of organization is being carried out on his part and his party's part and his people's part and the folks that he mobilized for January 6th. He's mobilizing again for if the election doesn't turn out, and the word that he's used repeatedly is bloodbath. Why did he use that word in the midst of talking about the economy and tariffs in the auto industry? Why would he use that word, bloodbath, and saying that's what's going to happen across this country if he is not elected? Why did he squeeze that in right then? You don't see that as inciting violence? Really? A whole bunch of other people do. Why does he have to speak this way? Is he not intelligent enough to find positive, uplifting words to move us his direction? Back to Rich's email to me, quote, Jesus said that sons would turn against fathers and daughters against mothers, and I found this is so hard to believe until I hear your words, end quote. I responded, in this case, in my push for purple, I'm saying don't turn away from your friends, family, neighbors of differing opinions. Let's maintain this as a country where we can still love thy neighbor, despite and in spite of it all, because God is all and God is love. That's the end of my quote. Then he says, Donald Trump saw God and talked with various godly men for years before beginning to run for office. My response to that portion was, I have never, ever, ever heard this story about Donald. Not saying it isn't true, but I am saying his behavior and words do not show me that truth. It makes me feel like it's propaganda, like his way of getting God-loving people like you to follow him, like his made-in-China Bible. I can't even put a capital B on his Bible. Regarding the part where Rich wrote, this is something that has been eating at him for a long time. God would not let him alone about it. I said, well, there, my friend, I do say yay. We are in alignment on that. God is very good every friggin' minute. And God works in some crazily mysterious ways as he brings us opportunities like he has brought us with Dawn, racism, sexism, and other isms that keep the general populace oppressed, depressed, and obediently in its place. And what I didn't put in there that I need to put in now, and I'm glad you're listening, Rich, is that these things, these kinds of isms, needed to seep up to the surface so that we could remember that they're there and they need to be completely eliminated. And just like you cannot change other people, places, and things, you cannot make everyone think and feel the exact same way. We definitely can stem the tide. We can stem the increase of racism by seeing this and bringing to light the truth. I just feel like a lot of those kinds of attitudes, racism, sexism, and whatnot, had been just like percolating and bubbling under the surface, and they needed to kind of volcanically pop up so that we could see it. So we can see it, and it's coming up at a time, it's not the 60s anymore. It's not. It's 2024. And there's a rainbow of people who are looking at that going, no, that is not okay. The last thing that I want to say from his letter was really like deep. It just showed me how much like, oh my God, I don't understand how this religion thing, I don't know how the propaganda made this happen. But he said to me, he's talking, God would not let him alone. And yet there are people like you who are not saved, who see him in an entirely different light. So I stopped at the saved part and I'm like, whoa there, Nellie. I said to him, just like with the six-pack handyman, I'm offering for your consideration that you not make assumptions. F to the YI. On 2 occasions in my current incarnation, I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. Twice. Once at 13, one at 19. Try super hard not to make assumptions that speak untruthful generalities. And I know a lot of, quote, saved people who are at church as I type, and they're voting for Kamala for the greater good. Then I go on, I say, I personally am trans-denominational. Because as after and I think I was like 21 or so in my journey. That's what happened. I just realized that God is showing up in so many other ways and other places and avenues of spirituality that take you to the same place, but in a different way. And it's just beautiful. And I love that. Nothing wrong there. But I said, I personally am trans-denominational. And as I see it, so was Jesus, a Christian Jew. And he practiced Reiki, for heaven's sake, among other things. He taught us so much about the metaphysical. And then I invited him to do that conversation with me some other time when the energy was not so contentious. I said, but basically, I pray to the same God Jesus was praying to when he was hanging there on the cross. That God. The only God I personally believe there is. And I believe this amazing God expresses in many ways to reach and touch many people in many places around the globe, teaching love and the same lesson, but in different ways. Different ways because God's all that and is not so limited as to only cater to Christians. So I guess the propaganda that they're learning is making them think we who are blue are anti-God or something. I don't know. And I asked him, I'm like, why is the MAGA party so anti-merging? Like they don't want to compromise. They don't want the unity. They're not interested in unity, or so it seems. I'm like, why do you guys hate? Why not love your way to a victory? Instead, it's about anger, name-calling, and hateful memes. That's not going to help us heal into 2025, 2026, 2027, which we desperately need. I included a couple of clips for him of Donald just being really violently speaking and how he advocates violence and whatnot. Sent that to him. I'll put those down in the box below. And I'm going to wrap it up here. I said to him, the reason gun sales are so high right now is the fear of a literal civil war as a result of MAGA intentions. This is real, Rich. Dems are not about offense on this, but we're terrified about needing to defend. I believe we'll see a record number of early voting by Democrats for this reason. And I'm one of them. I didn't want to put myself in danger, which is what I kind of sort of feel. In danger of a pissed off Republican by me standing there with my brown skin in line on election day. I'm not doing that. And I'm advising everybody to go handle their voting early. I walked into the polling place. There was nobody there. I got to park my great big old Jeep it was right at the door, basically. Walked in, got all kinds of customer service. It was fabulous. Bada boom, bada bing, done. Vote now. Nearly 5 million people have done it already. And I believe they are mostly Democrats. I can't believe that I'm actually preparing my household for a potential civil war. And my next door neighbor, who is my Uncle Gary, I told you about him last time. He's a Republican, and he's with me. And we intend to work side by side to defend our neighborhood if need be. A Republican and a Democrat. Because we both think it's ridiculous. And peace should be the order of the day. Period. Full friggin' stop. I actually believe that when Trump speaks these violent things, those are some of his only honest moments. I'm really hoping, Rich, that you can share with your friends and your people, and hopefully it spreads, that a difference in opinion is just a difference in opinion. Why does it have to equate to, quote, evil, end quote? That word. What the actual, seriously, what? What evil? It's a difference in opinion.
No way.
Difference in opinion is one of the main reasons for the Constitution, the First Amendment. Hello? So, Rich said, it blows my mind to see this happening before my very eyes. In purple, I wrote, me too. I can't believe it. He said, I pray for you, Gillian. I scratched out the word Gillian, colored the words purple, and said, I pray for you, Rich. And then I went on in purple to say, I pray that God, because he said, I pray that God will open your eyes and let you see the truth. I said, I pray that God will open your heart so that you can see and feel what's actually happening and at minimum, be able to love your fellow Americans without so much judgment. I also pray that you and your like-minded folks would grow more compassion for others, for the right of a woman to have a say about her body. Kamala wants to have Republicans in her cabinet. She wants purple to bring our country back. Joint input, cooperation, compromise, joyfully working together for the greater good. Why isn't that okay with you? And that's it. That's what I wrote, Rich. At the very end, I ended it with sorry, not sorry. And a heart. Bada boom, bada bang. Thank you for letting me share that with you. I have asked him a series of questions and I hope that he'll answer me. And I hope that maybe Rich will make my day by doing an actual voice-to-voice podcast with me. That'd be great. Would you like that, Rich? Yeah? No? Yeah? Anyway, I'll let you know what happens, but that is it for now. And everybody, take care. Have a great day. If you want to reach me, if you want to have something to say, you want to input on this or a question, write me at theconsciouscougar@gmail.com. Also, feel free to stop by the website, theconsciouscougar.com, and the websites of our sponsors, girlmojis.com. That's girl, M as in Mary, O-J-I, S as in Sam.com, and stargateadventure.com. Thank you so much for being here again today. I really do appreciate you being here while I vent. OMG, we'll do it again extremely soon. I'm Gillian Harris, the Conscious Cougar, over and out.